I guess I should kick things off by admitting that I cheated on my wife. Not something I'm proud of, but I'm not sitting here overwhelmed with guilt either. It happened, and honestly, I don't regret it. But let's rewind for a moment. If you looked at how everything unfolded, you might think my life was straight out of a dysfunctional reality show. It wasn't always this chaotic, though. I thought we had a picture-perfect life, solid jobs, a comfortable home, and for a time we genuinely got along. But then, slowly, things began to change, like a hairline crack in a foundation that you only notice when the entire house starts groaning. Emily, my wife, began to pull away. At first, it was minor things, staying late at the office or claiming to be more tired than usual. You tend to overlook it, right? Life gets busy. But soon, the excuses got more elaborate. Late nights, weekend trips for work, and suddenly her phone was perpetually on silent. I'm not naive, though. People often think they can pull a fast one. But after a while, even the smallest details start to add up. Trust me, Emily wasn't as clever as she fancied herself. It wasn't just about her phone. It was those damn trips. Every time she packed for another business trip, she'd use the same bag and bring the exact same things, as if she had it all down to a science. I mean, who does that? She wasn't some neat freak, and it's not like there was a strict dress code at her job. Yet every single time, it was the same items. It started to irritate me. Why pack the same perfume and the same damn lingerie if all she was doing was sitting through mundane conferences? Yeah, I picked up on that. How could I not? I couldn't just ignore it anymore. This gnawing feeling that something was seriously off wouldn't let me be. So, I did what any guy in my situation would do. I vented to my best friend, Jacob. He'd faced his own share of relationship disasters. His wife cheated on him a couple of years ago, so I figured he'd have some insights. And let me tell you, he didn't sugarcoat anything. Listen, man, I figured out my ex was cheating because she pulled the same crap. Those late nights and business trips. You can't trust it. If you want the truth, hire someone to follow her. Get the facts straight before you wreck your life, he advised. Jacob was spot on. Confronting Emily without solid evidence would be pointless. I wasn't about to walk into a confrontation without any proof, so I took his advice. I found a private investigator, a guy named Nate. He seemed legit, the kind of person who'd get the job done without unnecessary drama. I didn't divulge much, just that my wife was acting suspiciously and I needed answers. He didn't ask too many questions either, probably because he dealt with enough cheating spouses to recognize the pattern. While Nate did his thing, I started poking around myself. Not in an obsessive way, but enough to ensure I wasn't missing any red flags. And man, were there plenty. I began noticing small details, receipts in her purse that didn't line up with her stories, invoices for things I knew had nothing to do with her work. One time, she left her laptop open, and I caught a glimpse of a calendar invite for a meeting that didn't match any of the dates she claimed to be traveling. It felt like the universe was practically handing me clues. I found myself replaying our conversations, trying to figure out where everything had gone off course. Sure, no marriage is flawless, but this felt like something deeper. It was as if she wasn't just drifting away. She was racing in the opposite direction, leaving me behind without a second thought. There was one night, about a month before I called Nate, when Emily came home late, really late. She had this look on her face, like she was trying too hard to act nonchalant. She tossed out some lame excuse about working late, but I knew her job. Nothing she did required those hours. She worked in project management, not as a freaking ER surgeon. I let it slide that time because I wasn't ready to face the reality that the woman I thought I'd spend my life with might be cheating on me. Then came the night that flipped everything upside down. She was prepping for another one of her trips. Same bag, same routine. But this time, I couldn't just sit back and pretend nothing was wrong. Anger simmered inside me, bubbling like lava ready to burst. Yet, I held it together and stayed silent because I needed that proof. I couldn't just accuse her without something solid to back it up when she inevitably denied everything. That's when the cracks became impossible to ignore. All those times she left me hanging, her sudden mood swings, the way she barely acknowledged me anymore. It felt like I wasn't even in the same room. And the worst part? I allowed it to happen. I let her drift away without saying a word because I refused to believe it. Nobody wants to face the reality that their marriage is a dumpster fire just waiting to ignite. But it was, and I was ready to set it ablaze. When Nate called me with the first batch of findings, I was completely unprepared. I thought I was ready, but nothing could brace me for what he uncovered. I picked up the phone expecting to hear about some random guy she was fooling around with during her trips, maybe a coworker. What I didn't anticipate was Nate telling me that Emily had another husband. Another freaking husband. Yeah, you heard that right. Ethan, Nate said, his voice steady, almost unnervingly calm for the bombshell he was about to drop. Your wife's been living a double life. She's got a husband in another city, a guy named Ryan. They've been married for a few years, and they have a kid together. I almost dropped the phone. A kid? Another damn family? I just sat there, dumbfounded, my mind racing. I couldn't grasp it. Emily, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, had been lying about everything. Business trips? Total nonsense. She wasn't working late or flying out for meetings. She was spending weekends with her other family. The life we built together? Just a facade for whatever this was. I barely remember what else Nate said after that. I think I hung up on him. My entire world felt like it had been turned upside down. I started pacing the house, my mind spiraling through every detail, every memory. All those weekends she'd vanished. The corporate retreats and client meetings she had to attend, it all clicked into place. Every damn lie was just a cover for her to play house with this Ryan guy and their kid. I wasn't angry just yet. That would come later. At first, I felt numb. How do you even process something like this? Your wife has another husband. It felt like a plot twist from a terrible soap opera. Yet here I was living it. I needed to see it for myself. I had to know this wasn't some sick joke. So, I called Nate back, instructing him to dig deeper. I wanted every detail, where Ryan lived, what he did for a living, how long this had been going on. Nate didn't hesitate. He was good at his job, no doubt about it. While he got back to work, I started rummaging through our apartment, searching for anything that might point to this other life she was leading. And that's when I stumbled upon it. Men's clothes, tucked away in the back of her closet, crammed into a suitcase she never used when she was home. Shirts, pants, even socks that definitely didn't belong to me. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Ryan's clothes. That bastard had been in my house, probably wearing those items while I was out there grinding at work. I wanted to toss them out, maybe even burn them, but I didn't. I shoved the suitcase back where I found it and closed the closet door. I needed more evidence before I confronted her. It wasn't time yet. Over the next couple of weeks, I started scrutinizing her every move, every interaction. I don't know how I missed it before, but suddenly the truth illuminated everything I'd ignored. The way she dressed up for those trips, the phone calls she took in another room, whispering like she was afraid I'd hear. I even began questioning her about her work trips, testing her. Where was it again? I'd ask casually, "Who'd you go with this time?" She answered without missing a beat, but I caught the flicker of discomfort in her eyes. She had grown too comfortable with her lies, but now I was tuned in, and every response felt like another knife to my back. Nate sent me more photos. Emily with Ryan and their kid. There they were, playing happy family at the park, looking like they stepped out of a Hallmark movie. Emily was smiling, laughing, as if I didn't even exist. And Ryan? Just your average suburban dad, blissfully unaware. No clue that his perfect wife was juggling another life. I couldn't help but wonder what she told him about me. Did he even know I existed? Was I just some work colleague she occasionally dealt with? Or did she spin some tale about her job requiring travel? Just like she told me? I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care about Ryan. I didn't care about his kid or their idyllic life. All I cared about was how Emily had deceived me, how she'd made a fool out of me. But I wasn't about to blow her cover just yet. No, I needed more. I wanted to ensure that when I confronted her, I had every piece of ammunition I needed. I wanted to watch her squirm, to see the shock on her face when she realized I knew everything. That became my new motivation, seeing her world crumble around her just like she'd done to mine. Just when I thought things couldn't possibly get worse, Nate hit me with another gut punch. As if discovering Emily had a second husband and a kid wasn't enough. Now there was Daniel, a third freaking guy. This wasn't some emotional affair, though. No, this was purely physical. That's what stung the most, I think. She didn't even have feelings for him. It was just about sex. It was like I didn't even exist in her life anymore. How many lives was this woman balancing? It felt like some twisted game to her, juggling all these men, while I sat there believing we had something real. When Nate showed me the pictures, I was frozen, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. There was Emily with Daniel, meeting him during her so-called business trips. He wasn't anything remarkable, just some flashy businessman who clearly got his way. And Emily? She seemed to relish being one of his casual flings. No strings attached, just sex. This was different from her relationship with Ryan. With him, she had built a whole other life, another husband, a child, the complete illusion. But Daniel? He was just a fleeting distraction, a side dish in the buffet of her double existence. That realization snapped something inside me. It wasn't just about the infidelity. It was the fact that she didn't care who it was with. She was deceiving everyone, Ryan, Daniel, and me. All for what? The thrill? The rush of sneaking around? Daniel was a real piece of work, too. He was completely clueless about her triple life. He probably thought she was just a bored housewife looking for a little excitement on the side, someone who wouldn't get too invested. He was dead wrong. He was just another pawn in her twisted game. I wasn't ready to blow the lid off everything just yet. Not with Ryan, not with Daniel, and certainly not with Emily. No, I wanted her to fully feel the consequences of her actions when I was good and ready to strike. In the meantime, I started plotting my revenge, slowly and deliberately. The first order of business was to regain some control. Not just for revenge, but to feel like I was steering my own ship again. That's where Sarah came into the picture. She'd been flirting with me for months, and I had always turned her down. Not because I didn't notice, but because I was still holding onto a shred of loyalty, even though Emily had clearly tossed hers aside. Sarah was smart, attractive, and made her interest known. So one day, I decided to stop resisting and let her in. It began innocently enough. I invited her out for lunch, framing it as just colleagues catching up. She was excited, probably thinking I'd finally seen the light. We avoided the topic of Emily, but it was clear to anyone paying attention that our relationship was no longer the picture-perfect scenario it used to be. The truth is, I wasn't really into Sarah, not in a meaningful way. But she was available, and I needed an outlet. It felt good to be wanted, to have someone look at me with something other than cold indifference. After lunch, things escalated quickly. One evening, I suggested we grab drinks after work. One drink turned into two, and before I knew it, we were at her apartment. I wish I could say it felt like a win, but it didn't. It wasn't fulfilling in the way I had anticipated. It was merely a distraction, but it was a step toward something larger. For a few fleeting moments, I didn't feel like the foolish husband sitting at home while his wife entertained other men. Of course, I wasn't naive. I knew I had to be careful. Emily remained blissfully unaware that I knew everything. She continued her routine, sneaking off to see Daniel while Ryan played house with their child. The irony was almost comical. Ryan was probably putting their kid to bed while Emily was in some hotel room with her third man. And Daniel? He had no clue that once Emily was done with him, she'd be heading back to Ryan. The whole thing was revolting, but it fueled my determination. Nate kept supplying me with information. I had the pictures, the texts, everything I needed to dismantle her life when the moment was right. Emily's trips were the linchpin. Every time she left for those work weekends, She was really splitting her time between Ryan and Daniel. It was almost laughable. How had she managed to juggle it all without slipping up? Or maybe she just didn't care if she got caught. Perhaps she believed she was untouchable. That's when I started putting my revenge plan into motion. It was subtle at first, small actions. I copied every text message, every email, every photo Nate sent me. I wanted to be ready, to have everything lined up when the moment came to shatter her perfect little world. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I was sure I had her cornered with no way out. The strangest part was how she carried on as if nothing was amiss. After each trip, she came home, smiling and chatting about work, even complaining about being tired. It was almost absurd. She had no idea that I was meticulously gathering evidence to tear her life apart. But I wouldn't stop there. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. I wanted her to grasp the depth of the damage she'd done to me. I wanted her to look me in the eye and see the destruction she had wrought. And I was determined to make her pay for every single lie. Revenge isn't a quick fix. It's a slow burn. And I was ready to watch Emily's life go up in flames piece by piece. I'd been playing it cool, allowing her to think she still had control while I pulled all the strings. Every time she packed her bags for another business trip, I knew precisely where she was going, who she was meeting, and what she was doing. It made me sick. But now it was time to flip the script. I kicked things off with Sarah. We'd already crossed the line, and she seemed eager to dive deeper. For her, this felt real and exciting. For me, it was just another piece of my plan. She had no idea what she was walking into, no clue that I was using her to settle the score. We went out for dinner at a fancy place that felt too intimate for what it really was. But I played my part. I let her talk, allowed her to think she was getting closer to me. I smiled, nodded, asked all the right questions. It was almost laughably easy. When she reached across the table to take my hand, I didn't pull away. I couldn't afford to. She was a crucial part of the puzzle, and I needed her. Maybe that makes me a jerk, but at that point I didn't care. Emily had burned through any shred of decency I had left. So when dinner wrapped up, we found ourselves back at her place again. This time, I lingered longer, letting her believe this was something deeper than it was. For a brief moment, I almost convinced myself of it too. But every time I closed my eyes, images of Emily flooded my mind. Emily with Ryan, Emily with Daniel. I saw her laughing, lying, living a life completely separate from mine. That brought me right back to my purpose. While Sarah thought we were growing closer, I was getting to work. I spent hours copying every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that Nate had sent my way. Emily's entire double life was stored on my hard drive, waiting for the moment I'd unleash it. But before I could set off the fireworks, I needed to witness her betrayal in real time. So I packed a bag, hopped in my car, and drove to the city where Ryan lived. Nate had already given me the address. I had no idea what I would find or how I would feel when I got there, but I knew I had to go. It was like a sick compulsion, a part of me that needed to watch her deception unfold before my eyes. The drive was a blur of thoughts, and by the time I arrived in that quiet suburban neighborhood, I was a mess inside. Finding a house was easy. It looked like something out of a postcard, neatly trimmed lawn, cozy front porch, the whole 9 yards. And there she was right in the middle of it all. Emily, with Ryan, and their kid. I parked a few houses down, watching from a distance like a voyeur. Emily was smiling, playing the part of the perfect wife and doting mother. She kissed Ryan as if she actually loved him. She held their little boy, who couldn't have been more than 4 or 5, and my stomach twisted. It was too perfect, too normal, and all of it was a damn lie. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, wondering how she could live like this. How could she look at Ryan, look at their child, and not feel like the worst person in the world? But she didn't. She was good at this. Too good. It made me sick. After a while, I started taking pictures. Not because I needed more evidence. I already had enough, but because I wanted to capture this moment. I wanted to remember what it looked like to see her living this other life, a life that excluded me. I watched as they played in the yard, laughed, and acted like a perfect little family. I hated every second of it, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I stayed in the city for a couple of days, keeping tabs on her and them. Every time she stepped out, I followed. She didn't suspect a thing, of course. In her mind, I was miles away, sitting at home like the oblivious husband I was supposed to be. But I was anything but oblivious now. I was keenly aware of everything. One afternoon, I followed her to a park where she met up with Ryan and their kid again. They spread out a picnic, laughing and playing as if nothing in the world could touch them. I wanted to storm over, grab her by the arm, and expose her right then and there. But I held back. Not yet. I wasn't ready to make my move. That night, back at the cheap hotel where I was staying, I started plotting. I was going to expose her, but it had to be perfect. I wouldn't leave her any room to weasel out of it. She had betrayed me too many times. Now it was my turn to flip the tables. I decided I'd start with Ryan. He deserved to know the truth about who he was married to. I'd show him the pictures, the messages, everything, but I wouldn't stop there. I had plans for Daniel too. Neither of them knew about each other, and they definitely didn't know about me. But they were about to find out. Emily wouldn't have anywhere to hide when I was finished. I began taking notes, constructing a timeline of her lies, strategizing how to drop the bomb on both of them without giving her a chance to slip away. I even considered sending everything to her parents. Let them see the real Emily, the one they always thought was so perfect. That would truly tear her apart. By the time I drove back home, I had my plan outlined. Ryan would be first, then Daniel, and after that everyone else. I was going to watch her life burn to the ground, ensuring she felt every single flame. And I couldn't wait. After weeks of observing Emily's lies unfold, collecting dirt, and meticulously planning my revenge, I was ready to dismantle her world. I'd seen enough of her deceit. She wasn't going to escape this, not after everything she had put me through. First up, Ryan. I couldn't help but feel a strange sympathy for him. He had no idea what kind of woman he was married to, no clue she was spending her business trips with me, Daniel, and who knows who else. He didn't deserve what was coming, but someone had to break it to him, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be Emily. I drove back to Ryan City, this time with a clear plan. I had called him earlier, saying I needed to meet to discuss Emily. I didn't reveal too much. Better to let him fill in the blanks with whatever he wanted to think. When I knocked on his door, he greeted me with a friendly smile, completely unaware of the storm heading his way. Ethan, right? Emily mentioned you a few times. Come on in. I almost laughed. She mentioned me? What on earth had she told him? Was I just a friend? A coworker? The other guy? I shook his hand, feeling a wave of nausea, and stepped into the house. It was cozy and inviting, the kind of place where you'd expect a happy family to thrive. Ryan led me to the living room and offered me a drink, but I wasn't there for pleasantries. Ryan, I don't really know how to say this. I began, but he interrupted with a chuckle. She didn't send you to fix the sink, did she? He joked. No, it's not like that, I said, my voice dropping. It's about Emily. His smile faded, and he sat down across from me, suddenly serious. I could see the worry in his eyes. He knew something was off. I didn't waste any time. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos, images of Emily with Daniel, images of her with me, messages exchanged between her and Daniel, between her and me. Every lie she had told, every trip she had taken, every moment spent living a double, no, a triple life. I laid it all out before him and watched as his expression shifted from confusion to horror, then to utter devastation. She's been married to me for years. We have a child, he whispered, staring at the screen. How could she do this? I had no answer for him. How could anyone live like this? How could someone be so cold, so calculating, so heartless? I wanted to feel sorry for Ryan, but my anger toward Emily overshadowed any sympathy. He deserved the truth, and now he had it. Ryan didn't say much after that. He just sat there, blankly staring like someone had ripped away his entire world. And in a way, they had. I left him with the evidence, told him to do whatever he needed to do with it, then stepped out, moving on to the next phase. Daniel was easier to deal with. I had little respect for him, and from what I'd seen, he didn't care much for anyone but himself. I called him too, requesting a meeting. He showed up at a restaurant, dressed in his usual slick businessman attire, expecting a casual chat about Emily. "Look, man," I said as soon as he sat down. "I'm going to cut to the chase. Emily's been lying to you. She's married, and I'm not just talking about me. She has another husband, a kid, the whole deal." Daniel blinked, then laughed, thinking I was joking. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I replied, sliding my phone across the table with the same photos and messages I'd shown Ryan. "She's been playing all of us, you, me, him." He stared at the phone, his expression unreadable. But Daniel wasn't like Ryan. He wasn't emotionally invested. He was a businessman, used to severing ties when things got messy. "Well, shit," he muttered, sliding the phone back to me. "I guess that's the end of that. No tears, no anger, no questions." He simply stood up, shook my hand as if we just finalized the deal, and walked away. It was almost disappointing, to be honest, but at least one part of her life had crumbled. But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Emily still had no idea I knew everything. While she continued juggling her lies, I was preparing to drop a bombshell on her entire world. I started with her coworkers, sending anonymous emails with the evidence attached. Every message she had sent, every photo she had taken, every sordid secret, delivered to everyone she worked with. Next, I turned my attention to our mutual acquaintances, friends we'd known for years, people who believed we were the perfect couple. They all received the same message. Emily's dirty laundry was on full display. I was like a man possessed, systematically going through every contact in my phone, leaving no stone unturned. I even started to consider her parents. They were traditional and strict, always holding Emily to a moral standard, convinced she was the perfect daughter. If they knew the truth about her, it would crush them. But as tempting as that thought was, I couldn't bring myself to act on it. Not yet, anyway. Meanwhile, Emily was starting to sense that something was amiss. I wasn't exactly being subtle. I began acting cold and distant, barely acknowledging her when she came home. I knew it was only a matter of time before she started asking questions, but she hadn't yet, not directly at least. Maybe she was afraid of what she might discover if she probed too deeply. In the background, I was already gearing up for the divorce. I had the legal documents prepared and had consulted with lawyers. Emily wasn't going to get a dime from me. I'd make damn sure of that. If she thought she could walk away unscathed, she was in for a rude awakening. I even installed surveillance cameras in the house, just in case she brought someone over while I wasn't around. Every angle was covered. By the time I finished my preparations, Emily's world was crumbling, and she had no idea. But soon she would. Revenge doesn't taste as sweet as people imagine. It's not a triumphant moment where everything suddenly feels right. It's messy and ugly, and when the dust settles, all that remains is emptiness. That's how I felt after dismantling every aspect of Emily's life. I had exposed her lies, left her standing amidst the ruins of the world she'd built. But in the end, I didn't feel joy or satisfaction. I just felt finished. It didn't take long for everything to implode. Ryan left the moment he found out. He took their child and moved out of their home, cutting Emily off without looking back. From what Nate told me, Ryan was pursuing full custody in the divorce, citing Emily as unfit. I couldn't blame him. Who could trust someone like her around their child? As for Daniel, he didn't hesitate either. Once he learned about her double and triple life, he vanished. Just like that, it didn't seem to faze him. To him, Emily was just another fling that got too complicated. He severed ties and moved on, leaving her behind. Then came the fallout at work. Rumors spread like wildfire. It didn't take long for her colleagues to catch wind of everything she had hidden. The emails I had sent worked their magic. People whispered about her behind her back, questioning how she could live such a twisted life. Respect for her dwindled. Hell, they didn't even want to associate with her anymore. Before long, she lost her job. Her boss didn't outright fire her, but from what I heard, they nudged her toward resignation. By the end, Emily had nothing. No husband, no lover, no job. She was isolated, alone. The very thing she feared most had come true. Her perfect little world was gone, obliterated by her own deceit. But as for me, I wasn't gloating. Sure, there was a sense of relief. Relief that I no longer had to endure her lies. I was free from her, but there was no joy in it. My life was different now, quieter, emptier. There was no going back to how things used to be, not after everything that had happened. And honestly, I didn't want to. Emily tried reaching out a few times. First, it was emails, long, rambling messages expressing her regret, pleading for forgiveness. She said she was sorry for the pain she caused, begging me to give her another chance. She claimed we could fix things, rebuild what we once had, but there was nothing to fix. What we had was dead, and she was the one who killed it. The last time she called, I answered but didn't let her get far. As soon as she began discussing us, I cut her off. It's better to be alone than with a cheater, I told her, my voice cold and detached. I felt nothing for her anymore. Not anger, not love, not even hate. Just indifference. I could hear her cry as I hung up the phone, but I didn't care. I couldn't. Whatever connection we had was gone. I was finished with her. After that, I decided to start fresh. I wasn't rushing into a serious relationship, but I kept seeing Sarah. She was a good companion, steady, reliable, but I wasn't ready to dive deep yet. We had fun together, but I remained cautious. After everything with Emily, trust wasn't something I could just hand out. Sarah understood that. She didn't push, and I appreciated her patience. In the meantime, I focused on myself. I quit my old job and pursued something new, something that reignited my passion. I threw myself into my work, met new people, and built new friendships. For the first time in ages, I felt in control of my life. I wasn't defined by Emily anymore. I was just Ethan, and that felt damn good. As for Emily, she wasn't so lucky. From what I heard through the grapevine, she was struggling to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. People didn't trust her. She'd burned too many bridges and hurt too many people. The lies she told followed her everywhere. Every door she tried to open was slammed shut. No matter how hard she tried to rebuild, her past haunted her. I never saw her again after that last call. I didn't need to. She was a ghost now, a part of my past that I'd left behind. And while I didn't achieve some grand victory, I found something better: peace. I didn't have to live in her shadow anymore. I didn't have to wonder what she was doing, who she was with, or if she was telling me the truth. I was free from her lies, and that was enough. In the end, revenge didn't bring me joy, but it gave me closure. And maybe that's all I ever really needed.